Hey everyone, it's John from J&M Taxidermy again. As promised, I do have that crappie. Just pulled it out of my cooler. The glue is dry. What I did already is I cut the straight lateral line. You can kind of see it right here, from the tail to the gill plate. Another thing that I like to do with crappies is right around the tail area, I'll cut that curve through there right where the scales meet the fin. I'll do that on both sides, and that helps to relax the skin a little bit when you're skinning to try to prevent losing scales. So I'm going to do that right now, and I just come in with my shears and I basically make sure I don't poke through. Just go real slow. Got that side done. Kind of see it right there. And then I'll do the other side. Now you don't have to do this. This is just what I do. It helps me. And this is just on the non-show side, so this can easily be fixed or hidden once it dries, or once it's on the form and dries and everything. So then I take my normal fish skinning knife and I'll very carefully, like I've done before, is I push down. We're going to start right here, so I'm going to push down up here, and that helps to open that gap right there, and it also helps to lift that skin up just enough to where I can get the knife to start. And then just take your time, go very slow. You don't want to get underneath them scales and pull them up. So as you saw in the last video, this is coated with Elmer's glue, and the glue is dried, so it's helping me out by holding the scales in place. And like I said, once I put it in the tanning solution or in hot water, it rinses right off. It's just something I learned from watching stuff online on how to do this. Now your fingers are going to get kind of sticky, obviously, and right here, from me cutting through to do that lateral cut, there was a couple of scales that were missing, so I'm being very careful, because if you lose one, you can start to lose others, and you don't want to do that. So just work your way down, and then what I do is I just very lightly will pull up on it just to see, just to kind of help pull it away from the skin or the meat, so I can work my way back around. A lot of times I'll leave a little extra meat on the skin with crappies, at least until I get the majority of the meat out, and then after I got the meat out, what I'll do is I'll just go back through with my scraper, and I'll very lightly, delicately scrape it. And you don't want to pull too hard on this skin, because you could easily start popping scales. So just run your finger along the underside of it, lifting it up as you go. This one's skinning out pretty nice, actually. A lot of when I put the glue on this one, it was still partially frozen, which is good. I think is helping a lot. And having it in that cooler kept it from thawing out too fast. So I like them partially frozen when I skin them. But that glue is definitely on there, which is good. And just take your time. This is actually going pretty fast, which is surprising. I've done some smaller ones, and that I think is way more difficult. Alright, so that side's I already skinned out all the way to the fin, top fin. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to work on this side now, and then we'll come back to the head, and then we'll make our cut through here, where the kind of underneath the gills, that soft tissue skin. I'll cut right through there, and I'll cut up through the head, kind of where the skull meets on the inside of the gill, and then I'll skin that all out afterwards. So just bear with me for a second here. Same thing, push down on it until you get your knife started, and then just take your time. Try to go, don't try to get underneath them, you know, don't try to get further into the meat when you start it, because you could easily lift the scales right out of where you're working, and then they'll come off and you can't. It's really, you know, with crappies, you don't want to do that on your show side for sure. You know, like right here where this incision seam is, if I was to do a pedestal mount or a 360 mount on it, that would be a problem if I started losing scales along here. But this is just going to be a show side out on driftwood, so I don't have to worry about that as much. And, you know, obviously don't wrench up on the skin, just lightly pull up on it and take your time. Crappies are probably one of the more difficult fish to skin out. I think the harder one is pike, northern pike. Their skin is super thin, and they drop a lot of scales too when you're skinning them. So as you can see, I'm just kind of moving my thumb along there, as you know, helping my knife out a little bit. I'm trying not to get into the thin layer of skin that's holding the scales, because you can poke through and that'll ruin your day. I mean, it's not a hard fix to fix if you get through on the show side, but you try not to. I did see a video where a guy cut the skin all the way up to the head that way to help him out, just to relieve a little bit of that tension. If that helps you, do that, I guess. That's just one more repair I don't want to have to do. Another thing with crappies is the cheek meat is very thin, so I'll try to get some of that out, but a lot of times there's not much to try to get out, and you can cause damage by trying too hard to get it out, so I'll get as much out as possible, but a lot of that I might end up leaving in. Alright, so that side's done. So then we take the scissors, which I gotta go grab. And I'll lift up the gill, and like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut along that soft tissue right there up into there, but I'm trying not to cut through, because I like having that extra skin there when I'm doing the mount, because it helps to hold it in place. And you'll see the skin that I'm talking about, because your gills attached to it, and you can just trim around it, and it's like, it's paper thin. I mean, it's easily torn. And that's another one that, if you're not careful, you can easily cut, and then you just gotta, you know, you can fix that too. But, and that's just the collarbone part that I just kind of nipped. Alright, so then what I usually do, so I've already cut from, you know, that soft tissue up into the bone, you know, where the bone starts, and then down into the throat area. So now I'm going to lift up my skin a little bit, and it's still kind of attached. You can see kind of where my thumb is. There's a little spot that is still attached. So what I'll do is I'll trim that with the scissors, and that'll help open that up. You'll see what I'm talking about real quick here. Just take your time. Alright, so that's opened up. Now I can see why he would have wanted to cut up there, because if you can cut that up that way, up to like where the center line is, now you can fold that all the way over, and that could be quite helpful. So if you wanted to do it that way, you know, obviously you could do it that way. I'm trying not to. And I just very lightly work my skinning knife back and forth, making sure I don't poke through. You can kind of see how the scales are held in place. I don't know, I'm trying to get you. Like, this is a thin layer of glue on there, and you can kind of see how it's wrinkling up a little bit. That's holding my scales in place while I'm doing this, which is nice. And just take your time. It's very easy to cut through the skin on a crappie. All of a sudden you'll see a light spot and the scale will be on the other side of the table. And that sucks. You can really dog on it. So I'm just working my way down. Same thing with this side. There's also skin that attaches in here. So just hold your scissors at an angle and just cut it. Now, I'm not saying this is the correct way to do it. This is just the way I do it. That I found helps me. And if I can help you, then because I self-taught doing this, and if I can help anybody, I prefer to do that. I've also seen people just pry up on this and it ends up tearing, and I don't like to do that. But where that fin is attached, it's kind of, there we go. I just cut it free, so now I can work the rest of the way around. And once you have the skin off, you can do a lot more cleaning and get this a lot more perfected. It's just getting the main majority of the skin off right now. And the fin areas can always be a little difficult. It's very easy to cut through on the walleye video. If you guys watched that, you probably saw me do that. And the whole time I was telling you guys to be careful and try not to do that, and it happens. Wasn't a major tear or anything like that. It was just a little spot where I slit through with the knife and didn't want to, but this little area I gotta fix now. That walleye is just about dry. I'm gonna let it dry for probably another week before I put it on the form. If you guys would like me to see how I do that, comment below, and I'd be happy to show you in a video how to do that, how to put a fish on a form. I got a couple bluegills I'm going to be doing here really quick. They're already on the forms. I got a couple more I got to do. I have a lot of bluegills to do right now. One thing I'll tell you is when you're doing bluegills, if you can get a bluegill in around 10 to 10 inch range, that's the ideal range. I know those are kind of hard to find, but They're pretty common where I'm at. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my knife and I'm just kind of getting a little bit of that meat cut away from that fin area so I can expose it. It's being a little difficult right now. Trying to get my scissors underneath without poking through. Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. So the way I do good crappies is I'll get the meat out and then I come back and I'll clean up everything afterwards. And a lot of it, you know, I'll just get a majority of it cleaned up too. And then after it's been in the tan and stiffened up a little bit, then I'll go back through and clean it up even more. I do that with a lot of fish. Paper towel on your fingers also helps hold the fish in place too, or you can use borax on your fingers. Paper towel is just easier for me. And all I'm doing is not cutting through the backside, I'm just working my way slowly around, cutting them fin rays. And so far I haven't dropped the scale, so I'm doing pretty darn good right now. When I usually start dropping them is when I start working my way around the other side, and it's usually on the back side and a lot down here. And I try not to do that, but it's just one of those things. Like you can see they're starting to kind of lift up a little bit, and I'm trying not to do that, but sometimes these fin rays can be a little bit difficult. I just started printing my own 3D printed lures. I'm going to start custom painting those. And my printer just went off. I just printed off a top water bait. See what that looks like. I got one that it's a deep diver crankbait that I just finished. I did kind of like a perch color theme to it. I was going to take it out to the lake tomorrow and try it out. If anybody else 3D prints their own lures, let me know. Also looking for people that do skulls. Every once in a while I'll get like a deadhead that's got pretty rough skull on it, and it'd be kind of cool to have a skull that's in good shape too. And you can see I'm kind of holding it straight down at it. I'm trying to get them individual rays because for some reason it's stuck. There you go. Now we're talking. Yeah, you see, they drop. There's one right there. Came right out of that seam. Yeah, it's fine. Crappies are kind of they're a difficult fish, that's for sure. And like I said, it's on the non-show side, so we're still okay. But if I was doing a 360 mil, I want to do that too much. Now what I'm doing is I'm kind of pulling my fins straight out to kind of help me cut them free. I'm also trying not to cut through, so I gotta be careful. Is that skin where the fin meets the belly or any of the fins meet actually, can get a little thin, and it's easy to cut through it. I don't think I've ever seen anybody skin on a crappie and not lose at least 1 or 2 scales. But if you can do it without doing them, and if you got a different method for doing this, by all means, do it. This is just what I do. I'll try cutting from this end, maybe that'll help get them last 2 rays. There we go. Oof. Just poke me a little bit. And I'm just trying to help you guys. I'm not trying to tell you this is the way you got to do it. This is just the way I do it. I always find that kind of interesting, different methods of how to do things. And what I do is I'm just relaxing the skin back to where it was. Now we got to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to take my time. I truly enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I'd like to start doing deer really quick here. But a lot of people ask about why replicas cost so much, and you know, I don't think people realize how much the blanks themselves cost. You know, when I was just doing one for a bass today, and the guy said, well, that's kind of nuts that it's that much money. And I'm like, well, you got to understand that blank alone is about $350, and then you factor in, you know, buying the eyes and the driftwood and everything on top of that, plus shipping charges. Shipping charges are insane. And I mean, that stuff all adds up, and you're not really making much when it comes to fish. This is more or less, you know, something I do because I'm passionate about fishing. I like doing fish. I've had a lot of fish mounted in the past, and I thought to myself, you know, save me a lot more money if I could learn how to do this myself. So that's what I did. Watched a lot of YouTube videos and watched some videos from some eBay sites, and you know, there were some people that had some for sale, and I was like, you know, that'd be kind of helpful, and so I bought them, and that's how I learned. I'm just watching videos and practicing. I wouldn't suggest starting off with a crappie. Well, actually, you know what? Do it. That's the first fish you should learn on, is a small crappie. I've already said that. Because it's probably going to be the most difficult one that you've ever done. I did a 10-inch crappie a couple weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I should say. And that is definitely a difficult fish to do. Alright. Now I am going to, so I got all the rays cut. I got to free up the tail. I got all the fins freed up here. So once I free up the tail, what I do is I hold the tail and I'll kind of pull. See how I'm kind of rolling it over my finger? And then what I'll do is I'll just find them rays. You can kind of feel them out a little bit, and then I'll get underneath them and trim them, and then just make sure you don't poke through. There we go, cutting them free. So that side's done. On the other side. I know usually I do this a lot slower. Kind of doing this for the sake of the video. Going a little faster, but and I always have my finger on the back side so I'm not poking through. Making sure I don't poke through because I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to fix anything on the show side if I don't have to. Extreme angle with them scissors, free up some of that meat. The tail area is always where I lose the most scales, and it's because they're so tightly wound in the tail region. It's easy to do. I tell people all the time, if you're skinning out a crappie, if you sneeze in the room, you're going to lose a scale. Because they're just temperamental. And then just from lifting it up that much, we got another one right there. So not doing so bad right now, but try not to do any more. Now working your way around to the show side, you're kind of going at it kind of blind. So it you just want to be careful. Take your time. Like I said, a lot of times I'll leave a lot more meat on. I can always go back through and fix it later, clean it later. There's a lot of tendons held on that. They hold on that tail area. They like to hang on. They don't like to let loose. And like I said, there's probably a lot easier ways to do this. This is just the way I've done it. I've seen people use denatured alcohol, and they soak it in the denatured alcohol, and then they'll skin it a little bit, and then put it back in the denatured alcohol, skin a little bit more. The denatured alcohol helps to tighten the skin and hold the scales in place. There's 3. All along that seam, you'll drop them. Like I said, as long as they're not on the show side, then that's what it bothers me a little bit with crappies. But I think the least amount of scales that I've dropped on a crappie was 2, and that was sheer luck, I think. I don't think I've ever done one and not lost a scale. So yeah, just gotta work your way around. Don't wrench on that skin too much. Try not to cut through. I've heard that having a frozen fish while doing this is a lot easier. Maybe I'll try that, see what happens. I don't know, crappies are just difficult in general. Obviously the kids are up playing with the dogs right now. I have a pair of German short hair pointers, and one of them's a pup, the other one is The one that's barking right now is obviously the pup. She's about going to be 2 years old this year. Word of advice: if you want a German Shepherd or German Shorthair Pointer, or you're thinking about getting one, they are an active dog, and they're very smart. Sometimes they're a little too smart. Yeah, as you can see, I'm just kind of slowly working my way around. Just about freed up on this end here. All right. So, fun stuff. Now that I got a hold of that meat, I can start doing this. And you'll see that I'm leaving quite a bit on there. And that's just because I don't want to ruin my show side. If they plan on wanting the meat back, as far as crappies go, I just tell them probably not going to happen. That's just too much. Walleye, sure, I'll do that. Bass, sure. Even pike. Pike are scaly too. They have a lot smaller scales. And they're, like I said, their skin is really thin. It's easier to tear their skin on a pike, tear the skin on a pike than it is to tear the skin on like a bass. Or walleyes, I think, are the best fish to skin out because they got real thick skin. Their scales are super thick too. What I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of cutting up into that skull region because I'm gonna have to free this up quick here. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll take my shears and I'll come at a almost like a 45-degree angle, and I'll get that top meat kind of where it meets the skull. I'll just give her a good snip. And break that free. Now the skull's free. Okay. That was my son. He's letting me know that the dogs are coming down. I don't let them in my work area because I don't know what my pointer always seems to find, but I'll just look over and she's chewing on something. Not a fish, thank God. Not deer horns. I don't know if she's just finding random stuff.
I was like, don't even get your guys' butt upstairs. Don't even look at each other. And they're like, Grace turned her head and stepped up and went like this and woke up like, keep it going. And she's like, walks away. I'm like, yeah, keep it going. She's doing.
Yeah. So that's my son, Caden. He's not my oldest, but he's down here telling me, you know, he's playing with the dogs, and Grace, who is she's our oldest German Shorthair pointer. She gets a little grumpy. Mocha does too, but Mocha's our youngest. But I guess he was playing with Mocha, and Grace decided that Mocha was getting too close and gave her a little nip, and yeah, Katie had to separate them. We got Mocha first because I had a English pointer, and she ended up getting real sick, and we had to take her to the vet, and they had to put her to sleep, and we got Mocha right after, and Mocha had a little bit of a temper issue, so I figured, well, heck, maybe an older dog would help her out a little bit with that, kind of put her in her place here and there. Well, yeah, now we have to break up dog fights every once in a while. So what I'm doing right now is I freed up the skin in the throat area, and now there's bone that attaches that front part of the skull to the throat, or there's bone up here, so I'm going to nip through that. Just when I turn my fish, I just wrenched the skin pretty hard, so luckily it didn't break any scales off. And there, that is free. You gotta be very careful not to cut through your other side. And I did not, so I'm good there. I'm going to just kind of pull that a little bit. Alright, so that's freed up. I just cut through the spine. So all that's left is I'm going to have to free up the throat, work the rest of the meat off, and when you get it to a certain point, what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of working my finger around it. Trying to avoid using my knife if I can, but I have to a lot of times. And then you get into that, you'll get into that fin area on the other side, and you gotta cut through that too. But sometimes it just peels right off with your thumb, which is nice. I just got poked by a rib there. Alright, so I got most of the meat freed up here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to find where that throat latch, or the throat is, or the esophagus, I guess you could just call it. And then I'm going to cut through that, but I'm going to leave myself enough to where I can put some either twine or a zip tie on it to kind of close that throat region up. And right here's the throat. So I'll go back, and I'll usually leave myself about 1.5 inches. And then I'll just work my fingers around it. So here's my throat, and I've come back about 1.5 inches, so now I'm going to cut it. There we go. That's freed up. Now, if I did this right, I should be able to just pry this all out of here. Like so. So as you can see, I left quite a bit in there. So now what I'll do is I'll take my borax and I'll sprinkle borax in here. I'll trim along the fins and just scrape that all out with my scraper. Some of it out right now. go very light with crappies when you're doing this. You don't want to wrench on that skin because you can cut through really easy on a crappie. Believe me, I've done it. And just basically scrape. And if you haven't seen these scraping tools, all these are is, if you go to like Michael's or any hobby, well, craft store like Michael's or even Hobby Lobby, I don't know, a bunch of others, they have these clay carving tools, and they come in like a 5-pack or a 6-pack, and these are in there, and this is what I use for scraping these. You can also get them from your taxidermy supplier, but you're going to be paying a lot more for them. So like I always try to tell everybody, you know, save money when you can, so that's what I do to save money, and they last forever. And then just lightly scrape it. Dogs are really playing today. One thing I like when I like when the kids are home, but I also don't like when the kids are home for summer, because there's a lot more activity and a lot more banging around and a lot more fighting and bickering, and it just drives you nuts after a while. So I'm kind of looking forward to them going back to school pretty quick here. Another thing you want to do is just kind of just lightly working at an extreme angle, as flat as I can get to the skin to get some of that head meat out. You want to get up in there. You don't want to leave anything left behind, because it'll eventually cause some issues in the future with your mount. You'll either get grease drainage, or you can get bugs up in there. You don't want that either. Now this is bone. You also got to be careful too not to cut through the roof of the mouth. You can do that pretty easy too. I've done that once back when, geez, that was years ago when I first started trying to do this. And all I'm doing is just cleaning out that skull cavity. Cleaner you get these, the better. But like I said, with crappies, you gotta be careful too, because they're so delicate. Now, one of my favorite poses is a tail down look. You know, like mouth open, tail down and out. I think that looks just sharp, and a lot of my customers like that look too. So that's a common one that I use a lot for my forms. I get most of my stuff through like Mackenzie. Unfortunately, shipping can be a problem at times, so I try to do a large number of fish all at once, you know, ordering all the forms for them. And then that helps, you know, with shipping expenses. And then what I'll do is I'll clean up underneath the roof of the mouth. Right now I'm in the, I guess you could say, underneath where the tongue is. And I'm just trying to clean that up a little bit. And here's the heart. And I want to clean this up too. And then the next step after I get this all cleaned out will be to, I'll probably put some borax in it, like I said, and clean it out even more. And then I'll focus on getting the eyes out and the cheeks out. Now, crappies don't really have much for cheeks, so they're not too bad. Walleyes, on the other hand, have big cheeks. And there's a lot you gotta get out on a walleye. And you got various tools that you use for that. Just take your time. And then you start rushing, you start making mistakes, and then the mount just looks terrible after you get done, and then you're not happy with it. And that's when your frustrations come out, and you don't want that either. Like I said, you know, some of this stuff I'll even come back after it's been in the tan, and I'll clean it up again. Because it's when they start getting warm, that's when they start losing some scales, and the fish tan stiffens this up quite a bit. Makes it a little bit easier to work with, and prevents a lot of damage. And you can be a little bit more, I guess, aggressive with it. But for now, we're just gonna get what we can as far as the big stuff out, and then I'll trim along here where the fin rays are, getting some of that meat out. As far as the outer edge is concerned, just be careful and just lightly, you know, light pressure works. Just scrape it off. Now this is a 13, I think it was 13.5 inch crappie. I mean, they're decent sized crappies for up here. You don't see too many of them over that size. You see a lot of them in that size. I have seen bigger crappies. I'd love to catch one myself, but maybe someday I will. And my personal best for a crappie right now is only 13 or 14, I should say. And that one I paid a taxidermist to do years ago. So now I'm shooting for my 16 or 16 and up. I'd really like to get something around 18, that'd be even cooler. But 16 I'd be happy with. Alright, now I'm going to use the borax and just kind of clean that up a little bit more. After I get this bone out. There. And this is all I use. I just use the borax removal thing. Get it at Dollar General, get it at Walmart, you can get it wherever. I don't know what you guys have, where you're at, but we have Dollar Generals and Walmarts, and seems like everywhere you go there's a Dollar General. In Wisconsin at least. So then I just do a light spreading of it, and then I'll just kind of scrape it out. Like I said, just very light pressure. And this helps to soak up some of that blood and clean it up a little bit, and also deodorizes it and has many benefits. Some of these videos can be kind of boring because it's hard to talk while you're doing this because you're so. I like to focus on this stuff quite a bit. Should have probably brought some water down with me. I forgot to. So I guess I'll get this soaked up in water after I get the eyes out of it. Now I have my little eye tool. So you just kind of go in where the eye is. This is just like a little spoon with a sharper edge on it. You just work your way around. Crappie crappies are super easy because there ain't much there to hold the eyes on. And once you work them out, usually you can just yank them out. Just like that. And then I'll clean the, whatever's left of that meat out of there. And then for the cheeks, I'll use the same tool. You just basically free that skin up from the cheek area. And then I'll use my scraping tool that's got like the circle end on it. And I'll stuff it inside there, that eye socket down into the cheek area, and I'll just kind of scrape it. You gotta be careful though when you do this because you can easily poke through the skin on the cheek. And like I said, there's not much meat in the cheek area of a crappie, so you just get what you can out. A lot of that, I mean, there really isn't much in there. It's almost kind of a joke. Walleyes, you can get almost a whole scallop size fillet out. And all I'm doing is just taking my scissors and I'm trimming up some of that extra skin from the eye. There you have it. It's one side done. Now the other side. I'm just inspecting this and I haven't dropped a single scale on the show side, so that's awesome. That's what I was trying to achieve. So we're good. I see a lot of people, it's a look that I really like that I haven't quite figured out how to do yet, that I'm working on. It's where they have the eye and it's looking down, and I like the way that looks. So I'm going to try to work on learning how to do that a little bit better. I'm starting to use some more artificial eye sockets to help with that, and I think that'll help me get my look that I'm shooting for. Alright, so both eyes are out. You can see right through on a crappie. And then I take my spoon tool, or cheeker tool they call it, and I just free up that skin from the cheek meat. Just kind of stick it in there, and I just kind of work it around. Kind of like so. And then what I'll do is I'll take my scraping tool and I'll get in there and I'll just run it along the edge of that bone, and I'll just pull that meat out. And then after this, we're good to go. Then it goes into the fish tan. But I'll go and rinse it off before I do that, because I got that borax on there. Like I said, you don't get much meat out of them, out of a crappie. Bass and, I'm going to say bass and walleyes are probably the ones that you get the most out of. A lot of people don't eat bass, and for years growing up, I was always taught that if you catch it, you bring it home, you fillet it, and you eat it. And I learned my lesson with carp that way. Those aren't, the way I'm sure there's, if you smoke carp, I heard it's pretty good, but I personally have never done it. When I brought the carp home, I was probably, I don't know, 13, 14 years old, and my dad said, well, you got to eat them. So I basically filleted them and deep fried them, and let me tell you, that was not good. Not good at all. So I learned not to eat carp. But bass in the summertime, I don't eat, but in the wintertime I'll eat bass through the ice. It's really good. So, but that should be it. All I'm going to do now is just take it upstairs. I'm going to rinse it off and throw it in my tanning solution, which I've said before is just 50% borax, or not borax, denatured alcohol and water, so 50-50 mix. So hope this helped. If you need me to start doing videos a little bit closer to where you see, you know, a lot more of what I'm doing, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to do that in the future. So for now, have a good night. Take care.